Obviously, bring it in so we can see if there's something else that's causing slowness other than doing this. Bring it in with the charger.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Oh. Okay.
più gambata e
swami hlase ukulungile ngalokuthile ngibona ukuthi kuwe manje ukuthi kuwe nditsenge my
It's good, it's so cool. There's like an uprising on the
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you, Fred. I found on the second page, no?
Okay.
I need it. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honorable members, good morning. I also greet the staff of the Parliament, those attached to the Portfolio Committee on International Relations and Cooperation. We welcome the staff from Department of International Relations.
Recording in progress.
We are also welcoming the DERCO itself. I'm not sure who is leading it, maybe Mrs. Pengu. We are also welcoming South Africans who, through Parliament's platforms, may be following the proceedings of today's meeting. Our agenda mainly is one. Today, we're going to receive a presentation in the department about the digital strategy. May we have a mover to adopt the report, the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Datlas and Kumbaka. Agenda is now adopted, Lubabalo. Do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. We have 3 apologies, Chair. The Minister and Deputy Minister Moraga, they are attending the Cabinet Committee meetings. The DG is not able to attend due to sick leave, and the department is led by Deputy Minister Cortez. And the last apology is from Honorable Powell. She has a media engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Zuma Sambuta, can you mute? Honorable Sambuta.
Oh.
Yes, if you can just mute your microphone. Okay. As I said, honorable members, you are welcome to this meeting as part of the executive accounting to Parliament through the Portfolio Committee of International Relations and Cooperation. Today, we are going to be having a presentation from the Department on the Digital Strategy. Honorable Botes, we take this opportunity to welcome you, Comrade Deputy Minister. For today, you will be leading your frontline troopers from DERCO to deal with this matter of the digital strategy. As you remember, Honorable Botes, this has been a discussion from the 5th, the 6th administration about IT in the department. We had agreed in the last administration that one day we must create a time where for about 3 hours or so, we'll only be dealing with this item. So that item is today. And I take this opportunity to now hand over to you to make a presentation or to introduce your team who is going to be making the presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and let me appreciate your leadership and that of the Portfolio Committee. Chairperson, just to foreground our presentation, I just want to emphasize that this is per instructions of the Portfolio Committee that periodically we ought to present progress on the implementation of our digital strategy entitled 2020 to 2025. Key for members of the Portfolio Committee, Chairperson, we need to locate our digital strategy within the context of the overarching relevance of digital diplomacy, in particular as it relates to championing South Africa's national interests. The leadership chair of the department was conscious of the need to bolster our ICT security environment to withstand any possible cyber attacks as part of our overarching risk management strategy. We do so, Honorable Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee, cognizance of the pivotal role that South Africa continues to play to champion matters within the global political landscape. And ordinarily, Chairperson, we are not oblivious to the fact that doing so, our foreign policy trajectory will be contested, and access to information therefore becomes a key repository in our foreign policy toolbox. This new digital strategy, Honorable Chairperson, has been marked by innovation and resilience, and it will seek to showcase and demonstrate our unambiguous commitment as DIRCO to leverage the latest technology for the purposes of digital transformation as we conduct foreign policy on behalf of the South African state and her people. The digital strategy, chairs, identifies 6 interrelated, interdependent objectives with associated projects which were implemented over a period of 5 years. Today, we seek to take you into confidence in relation to our upwards trajectory and also seek to amplify some key pitfalls, Chairperson, that requires a particular pedigree of emphasis. With your express permission, Honorable Chairperson, may I invite our Head of Corporate Management, Ntati Clayson Monyela, to deliver our presentation.
Thank you very much, DM. Honorable Chair and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, good morning, and everyone in the meeting, including South Africans watching and following these discussions on the various platforms. The presentation is going to cover, Honorable Chair, matters of ICT governance, the implementation and digital transformation roadmap. We're also going to give an update on the 2024-2025 ICT strategic projects. We'll also reflect on some of the challenges, as the Deputy Minister has said, and also what we are doing to overcome such. Next slide. Now, on matters of ICT governance, we have deployed the best industry ICT governance frameworks that are applicable in managing, in particular, the ICT projects that we are currently implementing. And they are listed on the screen. We do so because as we implement these projects, we insist that we have to be compliant with what's applicable in the industry, both in the public and the private sector. Next slide. As the Deputy Minister was saying, the digital strategy was anchored by 5 or 6 objectives. In the outer year, when we started, the focus was to modernize data, storage applications, our network, telephony, and also bolster our cybersecurity infrastructure. We're also focusing on automating our business processes and integrating information systems. One of the objectives was also to provide and support all basic digital and information services, including skills development, recruitment, and training. Because as we implement these projects, we also want to ensure that the service providers that we work with transfer skills to our own internal DIRCO staff, so that when they exit, we've got capacity internally to continue to ensure that DIRCO benefits from the new technology that would have been deployed, and will have skilled men and women to oversee all of that. The other objective was to enable and support mobile and remote digital capabilities and services for anytime and anywhere access. Obviously, post-COVID, there's a lot of online work, hybrid and remote work that happens, and not just here, but also our missions do a lot of that. So we needed to ensure that DERCO, from a technology point of view, is geared at in ensuring that the environment allows this to happen. DM was talking about ensuring security, or rather a secure and protecting the department's digital environment to withstand any possible cyber attacks. Honorable members would be aware that there were some departments in the recent past that were hacked into, but in our environment, because of the secure instruments that we've deployed, DERCO has been able to protect itself from attempts like those. I mean, the DM was making the point that given South Africa's global stature and the role that we play, not just on the continent, but globally, there is a lot of interest in the work that we do. That then means there is a lot of attempts to access the information that we work with. So it's important to ensure that our environment is secure and protected. Next slide. Now, this is a 5-year strategy. So in 2020-2021, when the strategy was adopted and implemented, we were focusing on online collaborations, virtual learning capability. In the next year of the strategy, the focus was on renewing tools of trade and modernizing them, both for head office and the missions, deploying MS Teams for training, but also to allow people to have meetings. I must just pause here, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, to mention that when the leadership of the department decided to put together the digital strategy, this was after many years of DERCO not giving attention to the network that we're using. We were faced with obsolete infrastructure for many years. So the digital strategy was necessitated by the realization that we are being left behind and we have to catch up. So this is why in some of the audit reports by the AG and our own internal audit, you will see the language that we were still dealing with obsolete infrastructure, both at head office and at our missions, because the network had not been refreshed and upgraded for many years. And this is why the digital strategy had to be introduced. So this is why you're seeing basic things in the 2021-2022, like tools of trade. This basically means buying laptops and computers, something that would be as basic as that. 2022-2023, we introduced the DERCO app. And the reason why we did that was previously we had a system called ROSA as a department, ROSA being the registration of South Africans abroad. So one of the services that we provide to South Africans as a department is for South Africans who are in situations of distress abroad. They are entitled to receive consular services or assistance from our embassies abroad. Now, if we don't know that Matthews and Ndlovu is in the UK and they are in a situation where they need help, it becomes a little bit difficult to get hold of them and offer them the assistance that they need. So we introduced the app to allow South Africans who travel abroad for business, for studies, for leisure, or for whatever reason, to be able to register using that app on their mobile devices. We then are able to locate them when they need help, whether there's a natural disaster or whatever abroad. So that's why we introduced that. We've seen it being very helpful in allowing South Africans to access the services, particularly consular services that we render as a department through our missions. And then what we also did was to modernize the website for the department and a number of our missions. This is still work in progress, particularly for the missions. Obviously, for the department, this was done back then. There was also a project that we implemented in that year called data modernization. What we did here, as I said, I mean, this is something which had been neglected for many years. We now have 3 hubs which were delivered through this project: Washington, London, and OR Tambo building being head office in Pretoria. The new configuration through this project is such that the DERCO network, at any point in time, if London collapses, for example, Washington is able to carry the workload that is normally centered in the hub in London. Same with the head office. If head office for some reason was to experience an interruption and the network collapses, or the hub in Pretoria collapses, London or Washington will be able to pick the workload. This is to ensure that the work of DERCO is never interrupted. We never experience downtime at any point in time. So this was the whole rationale behind the data modernization project. This has also been concluded. And then in the 2023-2024 year, the biggest project that we had to deal with was the G1 project, global network project. This has been topical. We've come to the portfolio committee to make several presentations on it. The new service provider, which was appointed way after the contract with the previous service provider had lapsed, needed to quicken their steps in taking over the work, because we're also managing irregular expenditure, which DERCO was seized with for quite a long period of time, I think more than 2 years. I'm mentioning it because previously, when we came to the portfolio committee, I'm not sure that we updated that we're able to, one, ensure that the new service provider takes over completely, which means BT has exited the DERCO environment. So we no longer have the problem of irregular expenditure. We've been able to put an end to that. So we are firmly now in the 5-year contract of the new service provider, which has now completely taken over the global network infrastructure. And then, of course, one of the targeted projects was the e-submissions and record management, and also digitizing the e-leave for our HR colleagues to ensure that people no longer have to do these things on paper, but we try and digitize the work. The outer years, we are still dealing with some business processes that we're trying to digitize. I must just pause here and mention,
Hi, Madam.
Honorable Chair.
Or use the numbers, those meeting.
Ms. Mapini, please mute. Thank you. Apologies, Chair. I was making the point that in the outer year, as we conclude the 5-year of the digital strategy next year, there is a number of projects that, from an ICT point of view, in terms of preparing terms of reference, the business case for them, and all of that, we are ready to implement. However, the budget cuts that DERCO has experienced, like all other departments, have necessitated that we press the pause button on some of these projects. So though we are ready to implement, the spade work has been done, we're not able to proceed to the implementation phase because of budgetary constraints. I think it's important to underscore that point. Next slide. I've already spoken to most of this, but I'll just again highlight the projects that we've been busy with. The first one, the Global Desktop and Laptops Refresher project, this was concluded. I've spoken about the data center modernization project. This has also been concluded. These are the three: Washington, London, and head office. And then I've spoken about the network modernization, the GUN project. Phase one completed as well. This is what I was talking about, the new service provider who is now taking over from the old one. There is a second phase of this. This is going to include rolling out new telephones and also replacing some local network devices. But this is all work in progress. This is a 5-year project. So we are still well within the project implementation period as part of the 5-year contract. There is another project that we are currently busy with at head office, a different service provider. This is BCX, which is currently handling modernizing head office. The objectives there is to refresh the network to enable optimal access to internal and external systems. We are also ensuring there is Wi-Fi available throughout the OR Tambo building from corner to corner. That's what the project is meant to do, and also to allow audio and video conferencing so that as part of cost containment measures, trips that can be avoided and meetings are done online. Colleagues should be able to sit in the boardrooms at the head office and conduct these meetings. Though, of course, there are certain meetings that you can avoid attending because diplomacy, can be reduced to just digital diplomacy and online meetings. The last aspect, which is quite important, is to improve the ICT security posture at head office for the reasons that DM Waters was talking about, that I've also alluded to. Perhaps to emphasize here, Honorable Chair, that the estimated completion of this project is the 13th of December. So all the network equipment is on site. The Wi-Fi infrastructure has been deployed. We are just busy with configurations, and we should be able to switch on the Wi-Fi availability for the entire building in the next 2 weeks. And by the 13th of December, the entire project will be concluded. Next slide. So this is the slide I was reflecting on just now around the digitization of these processes were meant to improve but also just digitize a number of the processes that HR, finance, consular, and other components of the departments are busy with. Unfortunately, given the budgetary constraints, most of these projects are on hold. They are in the digital strategy, but them being on hold basically means that by the time we conclude the 5-year period of the digital strategy next year, there may be some projects that would not have been concluded simply owing to the budget issue. As I said, the business cases have been completed by ICT. They've also served before the ICT steering committee in terms of references have been concluded and all of that. Next slide. This is really just to reflect on some of the challenges that we have encountered as we were implementing the digital strategy. Number one, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members would recall that in the 2 years post-COVID, there was a global shortage of ICT equipment. This affected everyone, not just South Africa, not just the African continent. That introduced a 2-year delay in some of the initial projects that we're implementing. I think the portfolio committee would recall that there was a time when laptops that were meant to be shipped to missions. There was a bit of a delay, and this was occasioned by this global shortage that I'm referring to. Of course, the second one is the financial constraints that I've just spoken about. There is an issue of vacant posts. Again, this can also be traced back to budgetary constraints. There's a number of posts within the ICT business units that we have not been able to fill because there's simply no money to do so. I'm glad to report, though, that the vacant post of ICT Security Director has been successfully concluded. The new Director for ICT Security will be starting, when is the first? Day after tomorrow. And the reason why we were able to do this one is because we were able to motivate to the Director General that this is a critical post that you cannot survive without, given cybersecurity related challenges in the work that we do. So at least that one we've been able to fill. In conclusion, next slide, just for the Honorable Chair and Honorable members of the Portfolio Committee to note the progress update on the implementation of the DERCO Digital Strategy 2020 to 2025. Thank you very much.
Is that all, Deputy Minister Buetas?
Yes, you're correct, Chair. That is completeness from our side. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Honorable members, that's the presentation. We now have an opportunity to engage with. I will take hands. Advocate Honorable Sally.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, Deputy Minister, and to all. Thank you for the presentation. I feel your pain when it comes to technology and the need, which is long overdue. One of the questions I want to know quickly is how many vacancies do we have in the ICT at this particular point? I know that these budgetary constraints, but can we get an indication of those vacancies, as well as the fact that obviously one of the concerns that I would have is that technology constantly changes and one has to be abreast of it at all times. You can't even say we'll do it like yearly or whatever. It has to be a constant approach because it's ever changing. What is the game plan on keeping abreast of those changes? Because we've been failing. Unfortunately, we've been failing miserably due to budget constraints and all kinds of other things. Yet this is a factor that is vital for not just this department, but many a department. So those two questions on the ICT vacancies, and then how are we going to be keeping abreast of this digital evolution that we have? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sally. Honorable Smith.
Thank you very much, Chair, and allow me to extend my thanks to the Honourable the Deputy Minister and certainly to Mr. Monyela for, I think, what is a very important presentation to this committee. Cybersecurity obviously is at the precipice of not just diplomacy, but also security concerns on the international stage. And I think this is a very important aspect, not just of this department, but certainly for the executive across the board at a national level for South Africa. Chair, I just have 4 questions, perhaps between the DM and the Honourable the Deputy Minister and Mr. Monyela, they can answer them. The first is, could Mr. Monyela perhaps please furnish us with details as to the ITC service provider that was selected? I know he mentioned that it's one of the best in the country, but I think the committee would be interested to hear a little bit more about the service provider selected and the reasoning behind that. Then a follow-up on that question is, does this ICT service provider responsible for DERCO cybersecurity have any external servers or cloud storage? So is there a backup of sorts of South Africa's data stored within our borders or outside of our borders, and where is that data stored? I think that would be of interest. Then thirdly, to what extent is DIRCO working with intelligence to really anticipate and identify cyber attacks on South African ICT infrastructure and attempts to steal information? We've seen in previous elections in countries abroad that cyber attacks are becoming more and more prevalent, I think, in the interference of democracies around the world, with certain aggressors being difficult to target or locate. And I think South Africa is certainly susceptible to these sorts of attacks, and it would be nice to see that there's some collaborative work between DIRCO and intelligence on an ITC level to try and locate these and preempt them. And then finally, Chair, I would like to maybe personally thank Mr. Moniela for this as well, but the part on the ROSA system and the application that's been introduced to DIRCO, Mr. Moniela personally has been very, very helpful for the DA. We have referred a number of queries that we've received from citizens in distress who've been left stranded in foreign countries, either having had their laptops and passports stolen and needing to catch urgent flights in the coming days. And Mr. Moniela has always been a real centre of excellence in the department, and I just want to thank him for all of his assistance. On that, and through you, Chair, I make this appeal. Could the department perhaps brief us on the app that was introduced? I'm not sure if it was done in the previous administration, but I think for the new members, it would be great if we could see how the app works, so that we can deal with those queries directly and assist any citizens ahead of their travel or while they are abroad, just to maybe help take the load off of the department. I think it would be very, very useful to all of us, I think, to help citizens abroad in that regard. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Smith. Honorable Mutusi.
Ke a leboga modulasetilo madume go wena le botlhe ba ba tsenetseng kopano ya gompieno modulasetilo. Chair, I want to find out from the department. Mr. Moniela indicated in the presentation that they had paused their implementation due to the budget cuts. I just want to find out to what extent has the implementation been disrupted, which was actually affected by the budget cuts that they really spoke about. The second question, Chair, is that he also mentioned that they are shipping equipment, your ICT equipment, to missions abroad. I want to understand, why are missions abroad not empowered so that they are able to buy those ICT equipments from wherever they are located? Because if you centrally buy things in South Africa and then have to ship them to missions abroad, there's a high possibility that damages may also happen in the process where others get damaged. Why are missions not empowered so that they are able to buy those equipments wherever they are? And in most of the missions, they are likely to get them more cheaper than the price that you will pay when you buy them in South Africa. So that is the second question that I wanted to pose to the department. The third one, Chair, is that there was an issue of the tender for the diplomatic bag. Now, I want to find out from the department, in this day and era of digital technology, how relevant is the use of the diplomatic bag? Because if we're able to do, everything is digitalized, we're in an era of digitalization, and we are still putting some documents physically, like when we were doing a virtual oversight. I think one mission, they were demonstrating that papers will come through the diplomatic bag and then they get to process them in those missions, which also takes a lot of time. So how relevant is this diplomatic bag usage in this era of digitalization, Chair? The other thing, Chair, what I have observed when we went on a physical oversight visit to the People's Republic of China is that there are still piles and piles of paper that offices in Beijing, in Shanghai, they do have stocks and stocks of, papers there. How has the digital strategy resolved the issue of electronic filing system? Because our offices in missions abroad, it's just papers that are stuck there because they can't also dispose them within a certain period. They should also maybe dispose them after 5 years or so. So how has that thing dealt with the electronic filing system that we so need? Now, the last thing, Chair, is that can the department be honest with us? Are all the missions abroad connected, having network connectivity? I'm saying this because when we were in Shanghai, the office there didn't have network connectivity. Our office itself, there's no network at all. Where is the Wi-Fi or whatever? It's not there. So maybe the department may not respond here now. If they can give a detailed report in writing to say, these are I know in Beijing there's connectivity there, but in Shanghai there's no network connectivity. So let them maybe not answer now, Chair, just send the report in terms of how many of our missions we do, people have connectivity to the network there, Chair. With that, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mutusi. Honorable Douglas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation to Dirko and to all those who came, and I appreciate the frankness in terms of the information. Having just come from the China oversight visit to Beijing and the embassy there, and then the Shanghai Consul General's office, it is clear that there's an attempt by the executive to purposefully defund our missions and critical infrastructure like ICT. And because this has been taking a long time. If we look at the budget deficit in ICT spending, DIRCO reports financial constraints have delayed digital transformation initiatives like the rollout of the ICT and digitization. So why is the executive and minister defunding ICT? For us, when we were there, we saw there's a disconnect in simple things like payment systems. When tourists want to come and pay for their visas, or business people want to come invest and pay for their visas or pay for anything at the embassy, they want to use Alipay or WeChat because that's the most used platforms. But our embassy is asking for a MasterCard and Visa details, which they don't use in China. So we're using thousands of tourists, losing thousands of investors and billions of dollars of investment just because of simple administrative things like payment systems. In the financial year 2023, for instance, the ICT spending in South Africa accounted for only 1.5% of total government expenditure, compared to a global average of 5%. How will DIRCO address this deficit and realign its ICT budget to meet international standards? And then if you look at the vacancy rate of critical ICT roles in DIRCO, missions reportedly exceeds 30%, which is higher than the national average of 40%. So how does DIRCO intend to close this gap, and what impact has this had on mission effectiveness in high-risk regions especially? And with 70% of DIRCO's ICT hardware sourced from a single supplier, what diversification strategies are planned to mitigate this supply chain risks? Because this leads to operational downtime, and the delayed rollout of digital infrastructure impacts operational uptime missions, and it does create problems. So how has DIRCO conducted a comparative analysis with countries like Nigeria, where in Nigeria it has reported a 25% increase in operational efficiency after a similar ICT upgrade? There's a number of other questions around cybersecurity, but South Africa's commitment to the UN SDGs includes prioritizing infrastructure. How does DIRCO's ICT strategy align with this commitment, particularly in promoting a resilient and inclusive digital infrastructure? And then I think we will leave some of the other questions, but I really feel like we need to do more in terms of using key performance indicators to measure the effectiveness of ICT projects. And because the turnaround times is wrong, there's times when things just don't get delivered. There's people working in silos, and these silos need to be stopped. The red tape need to be stopped, and we need to look at operational efficiencies. So if you look at phase 1 of the network modernization project, why is it taking so long, and when are we going to the delayed infrastructure projects? It's like 40% of those ICT projects scheduled for 22 to 23 were completed on time, but there's so much more that needs to be done. So I think there's a lot that needs to be designed, and I'd like to get some information on those upgrades, and then how fast is this all going to be completed? Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Douglas. Honorable Budise.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me appreciate the presentation. I think the previous speakers would have then asked most of the questions, but safe to indicate that the budget constraints and the halting of the implementation of the project really is it's an area of concern. And I think the department should then be able to provide us with a brief detail on the plan on how they are going to aid that situation. Just one question then, Chair, again, is to check that this IT project, is it integrated with the Home Affairs system as well? As we are quite aware that part of the work that our missions are conducting is that includes the visa applications from members of outside countries wanting to obtain those documentation. How is, or what is the integration of the system with that of Home Affairs in ensuring also that the data is not it's stored properly and that it is not lost? We know that the Home Affairs system is still quite behind because they still process some of their documentation manually, which is an area of concern. But I want to check with this the ecosystem, how is it then integrated with that of Home Affairs in ensuring that the work that our missions are conducting is stored properly and safely? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Honorable Mundis, Honorable Deputy Minister. Wedes and your
my apologies, Modula Stilo. If I can just put one thing, if you can allow me.
Okay, Honorable Montoy.
Okay, there's one thing that I just got reminded from what Honorable Mudise just said now. The Home Affairs system that she mentioned, there are challenges that the Home Affairs system is operating on Windows 7, which actually then tells you how old that system is. I want to know from the side of the department, how is this? Because Home Affairs ought to have upgraded their systems a long time ago. And there are serious challenges that operationally the system cannot do. How has the department approached the Home Affairs for them to upgrade their system? And how has this system actually affected the work that missions abroad are doing because of the delays, always system down and that? Chairman, ke that additional question, and thanks to Honorable Modise for reminding me about that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Montoy. I was saying, Honorable Deputy Minister, you will realize we are in a new term. Majority of our members are new, so there will be some questions or issues that we would have asked you in the past and you dealt with them. An example is the matter of the service provider. You will recall that during the transition from the old to the new, in as far as the service provider is concerned, the department did give us full details on that particular matter. But I'm sure you will not lose anything in repeating the same answer. From my side, I just want to check why when we do asset verification, when we do asset verification, my assumption is that those asset verifications, then IT is used to then keep the data in as far as those assets are concerned. Can't we, when we do asset verification, because it's barcodes, can't we use this IT to have a function where we will be able to see which items of movable assets have reached the stage of disposability? Because when you go to missions, let's say Beijing, there's a lot of assets which are supposed to be disposed there and in Germany. But the problem is the asset disposal policy is according to the report, a bit of a challenge for the department and missions. People can move to dispose of the asset because of those challenges between them and head office. When you look at the Auditor General's report, it talks about this asset verifications, challenges, and so on. And my view is that it will help you a lot, Deputy Minister, that people who do asset verification at the same time using IT, they must use asset disposability. You must do asset disposability so that you deal with that concern from the Office of the Auditor General. It will help you a lot. Secondly, when we're in China, we're told about the problems of compatibility between the systems there and elsewhere in the country, including South Africa, because in China, they are not using, for instance, there's no Google that they are using. So I wanted to check whether the service provider have done something to circumvent some of those challenges that will have arisen as a consequence of China having taken some decisions regarding the usage of some platforms from the West. Because when we were there ourselves, we were struggling with just making calls. Comrades had to resort to underground methods and so on. You know that, but so it doesn't forget some of the tactics it used to use when it's a in Shanghai, they reported that if we are to use our IT better, it will be useful for people who want to export, for instance, to China, or those who want to see the opportunities in China, not going through the DTIC, but going through the DERCO. It might actually be better if, as Honorable Modise was saying, if we can integrate DTIC, DERCO, and Home Affairs, so that using IT we can deal with that particular matter. The last one is when we were in Germany, we saw a bulk of visas being done manually. It's just to check if that problem has been overcome, not only in Germany and elsewhere in the country. So if Mr. Munyela, you can just in passing also indicate whether the department, in as far as the service provider is concerned, you are very, very much happy with the services they provide, the accessibility to them, flexibility in the approach, and so on, so that one day we don't discover later that maybe you might have had some challenges with the service provider, but the matter was not raised. So if you can just indicate to the committee that you are still happy at this stage in as far as the service level agreement with the service provider is concerned. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Over to you. You can now deploy your frontline troopers of DERCO in accordance with their responsibilities to respond to the issues.
Yes, no, thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll obviously our main respondent is Deputy Director General Moniela. I just thought that maybe I must just respond to the matter that Honorable Smith have raised. Look, Honorable Chairperson, obviously the JCPS, from the side of Cabinet are the main interlocutor that look at how we deepen our compliance as it relates to challenges faced by cybersecurity. And the National Cyber Security Policy Framework adopted in March 2012 becomes obviously our key instrument. So what we are doing, Chairperson, there is a cybersecurity incident response team that obviously are subordinated and obviously dispense the work of your JCPS. And part of the mandate of your JCPS cluster is to ensure that all departments, including DERCO, are properly capacitated to perform our functions, and that timeously in relation to the development and formulation of the departmental unique cybersecurity strategies. It takes place within the overall ambit of the National Cyber Security Policy Framework. So there is what I call substantive policy ambit that guides the work that we are doing. And I think as Ntate Monyala have presented, we are one of the departments that obviously interface quite a lot with SSA and obviously the Department of Information and Communications to ensure that we adhere to the key prescripts of your national cybersecurity framework. Having said that, Chair, I think some of the other important questions, I think DDG Monyela would be able to dispense with it, with your permission, Chair.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, and once again, thank you, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. Just in addition to what the DM has said on cybersecurity matters, we do regular internal vulnerability assessment checks as ICT to just check to what extent is our system still secure and whether there are any attempts to access the information that we deal with. So that we do internally. And then state security also does regular assessments on our environment, both here and at our missions, just to check that we are still protected and we comply with the systems that the Deputy Minister was talking about in compliance with the applicable legislation, working with the other structures that have been set up by government. So we do that. Just some of the questions that have been raised. There was a question related to whether the service provider stores our information on cloud and whether this is in the country or outside. So there is a specific instruction from the PSA that we have to comply with on this particular matter that instructs that everything has to be located within the borders of our country. Again, it's because there's issues of cybersecurity and access to the data that we deal with that we have to consider. So there are very strict guidelines that we have to comply with, and we can assure the portfolio committee that the service provider complies with it, and we've ensured that our information is protected and is not available to people that shouldn't have access to it. There's a question here that also links with that of the chairperson regarding whether DERCO is happy with the services we're getting from the appointed service provider. Just perhaps to circle back, so there were 3 big projects that I've referred to. The data modernization project related to the 3 hubs was implemented by Dimension Data. We're quite happy with the service that we got from them in compliance with the service level agreement concluded between us and them. The head office refresher project is implemented by a service provider called BCX, which I believe is 100% owned by Telkom. Again, that is still, it's in the final stages. As I've referred to in my presentation, we anticipating the 13th of November to be done with that project. So far, we're happy, Chair. There's obviously issues that we've had to deal with in implementing the project, but it's matters that we're able to manage between us and the service provider. But we generally happy with the services we're getting from them. The G1 project is being implemented by Brilliantel. We're quite happy. So fortunately for us as ICT, with the end user, we're not involved in the procurement of which service provider gets to be appointed. But the procurement processes at DERCO are audited both by internal audit, the AG, etc. And all of these 3 service providers I'm referring to, the procurement thereof were audited and deemed to be above board. In terms of the services we're getting from the 3 of them, we're quite happy. The service level agreements we've concluded with them are regularly checked to check whether the targets are being met, etc. So we're quite happy. The G1 project in particular, in my view, I think it's the easiest for the service provider that got it, because essentially you outsource the commissioning of links and management thereof in all the embassies abroad. The service provider is at head office, but they appoint what they call last mile providers in all the countries where we've got embassies. This is how it's always been done. The previous service provider did the same, and the one before them. So in terms of the service we get from them, it wouldn't be difficult to get a very good service there. And then there was a question around vacancies. So in terms of the top management in ICT, we've just concluded the appointment of the ICT security director. There's 2 others which are also being worked on now. So I would say that at the lower levels, so one of the big issues now, it's ICT support at our missions. That's where there's an area of concern from our team, but also the missions, because of the budgetary issue I've alluded to. Because if you don't have an ICT person, particularly in the strategic missions, the countries where South Africa has identified as strategic countries, when there's downtime or ICT-related challenges, then they have to rely on head office for support, and certain things you can't necessarily do remotely. It helps if there's somebody physically on the ground to attend to the challenges. But this is a matter that management is fully alive to, and we are trying to find ways to address it. Just want to pause and acknowledge the very kind words from Honorable Smith. Thank you very much. I think we try and respond whenever South Africans need help from the department. So thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm also noting the request for us to come back to the portfolio committee to make a detailed presentation on the app that we've developed. I think it would be useful for honorable members to have sight of the app and how it operates, particularly the back office part of it, and how our missions and head office interface with the content, so that we are ready around the clock to offer South Africans consular assistance whenever they need it. So we would be ready to come back and make that specific presentation. There was a question around the relevance of the diplomatic bag in this day and age, given technology advances. So I would argue that you will still need to have the diplomatic bag. I think all foreign ministries would make the same argument. There are certain documents that head office needs to send to missions that you can't do if you don't use the diplomatic bag for obvious reasons. The diplomatic bag is protected, not searched and all of these things. It's treated differently from normal cargo. For example, travel documents, passport. When South Africans apply for passports and they are abroad, there's no way of sending such documents if you don't use the diplomatic bag. Of course, there are certain things that we probably may want to look at and see whether we can digitize, which we're currently using the diplomatic bag for. But I would argue that there are certain things that it's just unavoidable to continue using the diplomatic bag. I'm noting the issue around the connectivity in Shanghai. It was picked up by our team and we've since intervened. So the G1 project that we're implementing, the strategy, which I think was a correct one, lessons learned from the way it was done previously with the previous service provider, is that we now have 2 switches, and we currently are in the second phase of the project, as I said. And the reason why you have 2 switches is that if one switch dies in mission A, the second switch picks up. So you're going to minimize the extent to which you'll have downtime, what you experienced in Shanghai, where on that particular day when you were there, the mission was down. So the strategy of the current service provider working with us is that at all the missions, instead of having just one link or one switch as it was previously done, we're now deploying 2, primary and secondary, to avoid the extent to which missions will experience downtime. So we do think that going forward, this will no longer be a problem. That links me, Honorable Chair, to the question around to what extent do we integrate our system with that of Home Affairs. So we've got a working group as DERCO with Home Affairs that meets every second week. And the reason why we've got this is because there's no getting around the fact that we are in a lifetime partnership with Home Affairs at our missions, and our systems have to be integrated. The current challenge is what honorable members have correctly diagnosed. The system of Home Affairs is old. It needs to be upgraded. We've brought this to their attention. They are currently working on a process to do that because we've upgraded our system as DERCO, but theirs still remains in 1944. So once they upgrade the system, it will be easier then to integrate. We're also having discussions with them about linking their work onto the app that I've spoken about so that it becomes seamless for South Africans when they interact with some of the functionalities on the app to verify citizenships and all of these things, access certain things. So there is a working group that's working on the integration of our systems. As I said, the matter of upgrading their system is also receiving attention. There was a specific question around why there was a need to ship equipment previously, particularly when we dealt with laptops and computers. So the explanation I got when I arrived in the environment in an acting capacity was that when you implement a project as big as that and you buy equipment in bulk, after you've implemented the project, there's a component of support and maintenance that you get from the service provider, which is built into the service level agreement. So it's beneficial, useful, and proper way of using funds and conducting business to buy from one supplier, because then they will be able to repair and maintain and give you support for the life cycle of the project. If you buy from several people, this one buys from Pick and Pay, this one buys from Woolies and Checkers, you will have that problem when it comes to maintenance and support. And also because the equipment has to comply with certain standards that we've set for ourselves as ICT. So that was the rationale behind buying in bulk and making sure that everybody has the same equipment and can benefit from support and maintenance from the service provider. And then there was a question around how do we keep up with the latest trends in technology as a department or generally as government. So there are several things that are being done. The digital strategy itself speaks to this. There is also a committee in the department called ICT Steering Committee. One of its responsibility is to ensure that the department keeps up with the latest trends. In fact, it's going to be chaired by an external ICT expert. The department is currently concluding that process because we are alive to the need to keep up with what happens in the industry technology-wise. There's, of course, annual conferences, GovTech, Gartner, and others where the industry showcases the latest trends. And of course, our officials are always part of these conferences so that we are not left behind. And then, of course, they come back and we build what they would have seen and observed into our annual plans and strategies to ensure that we always refresh our environment from a technology point of view. And then there was a question regarding how can we deploy ICT as part of asset management and verification. Chair, I take that and we will reflect on it to see how do we improve the current way in which we're doing asset verification as part of asset management, and how can we better deploy technology in the manner that you've suggested. So I've captured that. We'll certainly regroup as a team and reflect on how we can incorporate this. I think it's a very good suggestion. And just on the two issues, I can report back, Chair, that we've successfully dealt with the issue of the manual visas in Germany. It was just for that period. We were unfortunate that you went there when we had problems and you witnessed this. But we were able to intervene, and the system is back now, up and running. So we're no longer doing it manually. It's now back to the normal way of doing it. Then I've captured the comments regarding doing this assessment regarding the improvement operationally. So operational efficiency, what is the extent of the improvement, and if we can measure it even better after we've deployed the new technology in the environment. Is life better than the way it was before from the way DERCO conducted its business? I do think the current meeting that we are in, Honorable Chair, is just but one illustration that the technology we've deployed in the department is able to allow us to have meetings of this nature where I'm sitting in the boardroom, the camera is on, and you know, the network is good. I'm not getting cut off and not having connectivity problems. I do think this is one illustration that the technology we've deployed is yielding the desired results. I think I've spoken to the issue of integration with Home Affairs. My colleagues here have just reminded me, Honorable Montoedi, that one of our senior diplomats that we had in the department for the longest time in charge of human rights, Honorable Pitso Montoedi, is sorely missed. He was extremely good, and I saw your picture previously and when we were there in Cape Town for one of the portfolio committee meetings, you actually do look like Honorable Pitso Montoedi. So my colleagues insisted that I must mention that we valued Honorable Pitso Montoedi's leadership as a senior diplomat for many years in the department. Honorable Chair, thank you very much. I think we've dealt with the questions. The others, we take them as comments and we'll certainly incorporate them in our planning going forward. Thank you very much.
Honorable Deputy Minister Buertas, any points for amplification?
No. I'm adequately covered by Natati Monyela. Thank you very much, Madulo Stula.
Honorable members, is there any one of you who wants to do a bit of Pendam Zala?
Chair, my apologies. Can I come in?
Yes.
Thanks for the response from the department. I don't think there was a response on the electronic filing system, or maybe if I have missed that, apologies. And then also on how has the budget cuts affected the implementation of the digital strategy? Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's the only Pendam Zala we have. Honorable Ndate Munya.
Thank you very much, and apologies, I did actually miss those two questions. So the filing system is one of the projects in the digital strategy that's currently ready. But because of the budget cuts, it's on pause, but we're looking creatively as to how else can we do it, either at no cost or so we are having that discussion around how do we have records management or digital records management system in the current context of the budgetary constraints. That then links me with the next question around what is the impact of the budget cuts on some of the projects that we are meant to implement. This is actually an illustration of that. Unfortunately, there are projects that if we don't get an intervention from National Treasury going into next year, which is meant to be the last year of the 5-year strategy implementation, it may be that in 2026, we'll still be sitting with certain projects that would not have been implemented if there is no intervention from National Treasury. I must just mention, Honorable Chair, that the DERCO management led by the Director General has met with National Treasury on a number of occasions, speaking about the funding of DERCO, not just ICT related project, but many other areas of our work are simply not funded at the moment. Our operations are severely affected by the budget cuts. In fact, one colleague was making this comment in jest that we are being reduced to a department of salaries, where we just pay people salaries, but some of the projects and operations that we are meant to do on a daily basis simply can't happen because they are not funded. So it's an ongoing conversation we're having with National Treasury, but at the same time, we're also looking at creatively how we can still execute some of these projects at no cost. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ndate Munyela. You can do your closing remarks, Deputy Minister Buertas. Ndate Buertas. Okay, honorable members, let's thank the department for coming to account to the portfolio committee as part of its constitutional mandate. As you know, we have a responsibility as Parliament in terms of the Constitution of the Republic to do 3 things. Hold the executive accountable, we have just done it now, we do it on a regular basis. Ensure public participation and lawmaking. I also want to thank the staff for having made sure that we have this smooth transmission of the portfolio committee meeting through the virtual platform. Ndade Munyela and your team, we also give regards to you. The incisive robustness that came from members in as far as interrogating the report from the department is concerned, we applaud you members for making sure that the public that is following the proceedings of our portfolio committee can see that indeed we are engaging the department as part of our constitutional responsibility. Very soon, Honorable Deputy Minister Botes and the team of DERCO, especially starting from next year, we are going to be rolling out two critical things which are new, which we are introducing to the portfolio committee. So we need to prepare yourselves for that. Most of that work is going to be done by the portfolio committee, but in some instances, we may need you to do some of the work or delegate it to some of your retired ambassadors and retired ministers and so on. Next day, we are embarking on a program to put at the center of everything we do the masses, the people, the grassroots. We are waiting a green light just from Parliament Legal Services to tell us, in the context of policy formulation within Parliament, are we indeed on course in as far as compliance is concerned? The other matter is going to be a plethora of symposiums that we are going to be having almost on a weekly basis to discuss global developments. In both instances, it will be involving the grassroots, the people in the mikukus, the villages, in the townships. So next day is going to be very much exciting until 2029, so that we familiarize our people on the ground with some of this work that we do, so that we are not just seen as elitists who are parochial in their approach, and we don't move from complexity to simplicity, so that people can understand what we are doing. We want to thank you also for the manner in which you and the presidency worked together to ensure the success of FOCAC. FOCAC helps us not only to work with China to pursue economic diplomacy, but FOCAC, among other things, imposes a heavy responsibility on us to make sure that we work with the rest of the continent to pursue many of our continental agenda. So we want to thank you for ensuring that those things go well. The feedback we got from Ambassador Twele in Beijing was very impressive. And indeed, it confirms the work that you do to make sure that South Africa at an international stage plays its role. In Kazan, we could see and observe in Russia, BRICS was very, very successful. And at the center of the participation by South Africa there, you did very, very well. We know that COP29 is sitting, and we know that you are working with the relevant departments like that of environment to ensure that COP29 does indeed see the participation of South Africa is always expected, and it's always it has been. Yesterday, South Africa presented some additional information to the IECJ in as far as the atrocities imposed upon by Israel on the people of Palestine is concerned. Since the beginning of this matter of the ICJ, pursued by South Africa on behalf of all the right-thinking people in the world, it has put South Africa at a very strategic level of geopolitics. We know as South Africa that there will continue to be reservations from some people, but we know that the cause we are pursuing is a just cause, is a cause of the people. So we want to thank the department for making sure that that ICJ process will reach its logical conclusion. And it will also help us to very soon deal with the matters of the criminal court in as far as Prime Minister Netanyahu and those who are surrounding him are concerned, who are enjoying the flow of the blood of the Palestinians, people in Lebanon, and so on a daily basis. We also want to thank the department for ensuring that negotiations that are taking place behind the scenes as part of diplomacy, engaging Egypt and the Arab states to make sure that some intervention is made in achieving peace in Palestine, that must be commended. The fact that the Palestinians were also invited in Kazan to participate with us as South Africa and the rest of the member states of the BRICS must be applauded. There's a matter relating to which was making circulations in the media. Just before I go into that matter, Honorable Deputy Minister and Lisa, we will request that you engage ICASA on the disconnection of the network of the service provider who comes from China, who is in Midrand in Johannesburg. Because when we were in China, that matter was raised. If we don't attend to that matter, it might create problems of these diplomatic relations. We don't want tension with China. Where people are wrong, yes, let's deal with people who are wrong and be able to demonstrate to our friends in China that here wrong has been done, the laws of the Republic have been flouted. But the impression that even the ambassador here, Mr. Wu, has about what happened is that ICASA just came there and unplugged everything, including the service that is being provided to the rest of the continent in terms of connectivity. We know that this is not your direct responsibility, but dealing with matters of possible diplomatic problems between us and China, I'm sure it will be helpful for you to deal with that particular matter. The other matter is Taiwan. You may have seen the statements going around about Taiwan. We don't have time today, but I think very soon we will request the department to come to us so that we discuss this Taiwan matter. There are honorable members who, in their individual capacities and through their political organizations and NGOs, they have got a very warm, hot relationship with Taiwan. So they want everybody to have the same relationship with Taiwan because they have a good relationship with Taiwan. So they want to elevate the status of their individualism and their organizations and NGOs to the level of the state of the Republic of South Africa. They don't understand that they can't be at the level of the state of the Republic of South Africa, because the Republic of South Africa took a decision a long time ago when President Nelson Mandela was still alive, to terminate the diplomatic relations with Taiwan. President Ramaphosa, very recently in FOCAC, re-emphasized this important point that we believe in one China policy, and one China policy must be understood as such. Individual companies that come from wherever in the world, including Taiwan, and because we want to grow our economy, and such companies from Taiwan are here in South Africa to do trade with other private entities here in South Africa. There's no problem with that. I don't understand why people want to conflate issues of diplomatic relations with enterprises coming all over the world to South Africa to come and invest, so that there can be mutual benefits between them as individual enterprises and individual enterprises here in South Africa. So some people who, for their own opportunistic tendencies and narrow political interests, who want to continue to embrace Taiwan, they are conflating trade that is taking place between individual or among individual enterprises in Taiwan with enterprises here in South Africa, elevating that to meaning that it means we have, as the state of South Africa, the Republic, we have diplomatic relations with Taiwan. So, Deputy Minister, at the right time before Christmas, I hope we can have that time. We will want the department to come so that we discuss this Taiwan issue, diplomatic relations, and maybe at other areas. For instance, a refresher presentation in the portfolio committee. A refresher presentation in the portfolio committee on the extent to which we have a relationship diplomatically with Israel. Because in the past we dealt with this matter when Menaledi was still the Minister of DERCO. So I suppose we will come back and deal with that matter. The other matter that I think we may have to deal with in the department before we go for Christmas, if we've got time, is just a briefing on all the elections that have taken place around the globe, generally, and specifically in the African continent and in SADC, how those elections have proceeded, and whether the outcomes of those elections have a potential to either strengthen, neutralize, or weaken relationships diplomatically that South Africa has with some of these countries that have gone through various elections. I think that report that it Clayson will help the portfolio committee a lot, so that we can just do a scan of all elections that are taking place, like in Botswana today. There are elections next door in Mozambique. There were elections, results have been released, and people are burning tires. So I think it will be helpful to come back and deal with those remaining issues. But we want to thank you, as always, for having come to the portfolio committee to come and account. That's an obligation, not only because it's in the Constitution, but also because the people of South Africa expect you as DERCO to account to the portfolio committee, and want to thank you for continuing to be consistent in that regard. So we wish you well, honorable members, at 2 o'clock. We hope to see some change of tone in the Minister of Finance this afternoon, in as far as augmenting DERCO is concerned, because DERCO has been raising this matter of necessary budgetary augmentation, so that DERCO is able to meet its obligations, because without DERCO being able to meet its obligations, working with DTIC and Home Affairs, this agenda at global level where we want even more investments to come to South Africa to deal with poverty, inequality, and unemployment will not be able to reach that objective. So let's wait for 2 o'clock. And when we meet next time as a department and the portfolio committee, we will express our view as to whether we are happy, moderately happy, or extremely happy with the budget adjustments that is going to be presented here today, so that if we are not happy, we can then say, how do we make sure that between now and February, we indeed put pressure on both the presidency and Treasury to ensure that by the next cycle of the financial year, 25-26, indeed that augmentation substantially takes place. The meeting is now officially closed. Enjoy your day, honorable members.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable
Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Members.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members.
Thank you all.
Bye. Morning.